Okay. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Forum. And today we're going to be hearing about the student farm. My name is Andrew Waterhouse, and I'm director of the Robert Mondavi Institute. The Institute strives to provide educational and entertaining programs to the public on subjects of food generally, and other important, and we look at research and teaching activities that are important at UC Davis. And today is certainly no exception. We're here today at the student farm. In fact, we're not just at the student farm, we're at the field house at the student farm. And today you're going to hear what attracts so many students to participate in the student farm activities. Colin Dixon is the director of the student farm, recently hired. He came here from BSCS Science Learning and Flatlands Oil and Mill. Colin, I'd like to ask you a few questions about the student farm to get started. Can you tell us how long the farm has been here?
Yeah, well, the farm was started in 1977, if I remember the history right, and that was importantly by UCD students. So not by the administrators or faculty who said, we need this, but by students who kind of looked at agriculture, looked at education and said, something's not right and we want to fix it. And so that's
great.
something we really hang on to.
We're going to hear about a number of programs here today, but I know that there are many other programs. Could you mention something about the scope of what happens at the student farm?
Yeah, the scope is wide, and in fact we have a program called SCOPE, the Student Collaborative Organic Breeding Program. That's so one of, depending on the season, depending on how you count, there's kind of between 4 and 11 or something programs here at the student farm. So SCOPE is one, Student Collaborative Organic Breeding Program. We have the Ecological Garden, which hosts the Flower Project, and Kids in the Garden, that's led by Julia Schreiber. We have the Market Garden, which leads our CSA and farm stand, as well as research projects in collaboration, led by Emma Torber. There is our Fresh Focus, Food Access Security and Sovereignty program, supported by our staff member, June. Let's see, we'll keep going here. Kids in the Garden also supported by Lexi Nelson. Scope, Fresh Focus, what am I missing? We have the Woods, we have our Shop and Vineyard program, supported by Jim Muck. What am I missing, guys?
Sounds like you covered it.
That's most of them. UPIC Gardens, there's a lot going on, and to do all that, it's really sustained by our lead student farmers, a few of which we have here today, as well as student interns and volunteers.
Good. Can you tell us what might attract students to the student farm? Like what brings students here? And another thing I guess I'd like to know is how many students actually participate during a year? Is it?
Oh, well, that counts even harder than the programs. But we have around, I think right now we have around 40 student interns and 20 lead student farmers every quarter, including the summer sessions, and as well as volunteers and people who come out with classes. So the number of people coming out here for classes is anywhere between 100, anywhere between 20 and 100 and 150 students per quarter. So a lot of students interact with the space out here. And we'll hear more about what attracts students to the student farm, but sometimes it's just being outside. We have a lot of sustainable ag majors, and sometimes it's the tractors.
Can you give us a rough idea of what do students learn by working out here on the farm?
We'll hear more about that as well. But as far as our learning objectives for students go, it's a hard thing to answer because I think our main mission is really to be is to hold a space for students to learn and model ecologically, socially, economically sustainable agriculture and food systems. And so I really think that holding that space, that place, that community means leaving space for students to kind of seek out the things they want to learn and kind of learn them together with us. But in terms of the sub skills, I think in what it takes to the skills it takes to kind of build those just and sustainable food systems, it's really kind of a systems thinking that scales from soil chemistry and microbes to how to run a tractor and lay a drip line to really aspirational thinking. What do we want this place to look like in 50 years, and who cared for it, who got it to the place here for us. So each of those things looks different in the programs.
Okay, one question I know I've been thinking about, do the students who work on the farm out here actually end up being farmers?
Yes. Some of them. But it's one of, I think, a lot of goals. So we do have, a lot of students who go into farming, a lot of students who do other food systems related work, or again, you'll hear from students today who work in other kind of ecological management ways of interacting with ecological agricultural systems. So we do have students who go into farming, but it's one of many goals.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask a little bit about you, and I guess the obvious question is, what was your first experience farming or gardening, whatever? There must have been something.
Yeah, well, it started very early, so as soon as my mom thought I could take instruction. But yeah, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest where it was too cold to grow good tomatoes. And so we had Angora goats and rabbits and a big garden. And so I think early on I saw agriculture as a place of just continual learning no matter the age, and really I think a place of creation that could fulfill, I think, a really human need to put something out in the world and to be in conversation with the world.
Yeah. Then, I'm running this farm, I'm sure is pretty complicated. And I was just wondering, do you have any professional farming experience?
It's complicated for Julia, Judy, Emma, and these guys. But no, so for the last 7 or 8 years, I have been farming and milling organic olives, a pretty small scale, so 1,000 to 3,000 liters per year. But working with a couple mentors, but yeah, I've been able to learn kind of the pressures, the techniques, and the periodic joys of organic production, and that's again through mentors Mike and Diane Madison.
The Madisons. So
everybody does.
Everybody does, right? So another question is, obviously this is an educational experience, or should be. And so do you have a background in education as well?
Yes, and so I've always tried to, I think, keep farming and agriculture and natural systems as part of my life, but yeah, most of my career has been in education. And I've taught in classrooms and in community-based settings, really in California and much, much further afield. And by a long road, I ended up here at the UC Davis School of Education doing graduate studies. And really, really trying to think and study and research how people learn and when learning, especially in community-based settings, kind of impacts their trajectories and the way they think about the world. And so, being here at the farm kind of brings together kind of a lot of strands of my life and career, and I guess I'd say, satisfies mind, heart, body, all those above.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, we're going to move on to interview our 3 students here, and the first one we're going to be talking to is JT Trujillo. He's a senior in mechanical engineering, which to me doesn't sound like he should be on the student farm, but that sounds great. He's the lead student farmer in the market garden. Welcome, JT.
Hello.
We're going to start with a short video that was taken and produced by Yale Mackendorf from the college communications office out on the farm, so you can see what it's like out there.
No other campus in the country has a program quite like this. What excites me the most about the Market Garden is the ability to get real-world experience, to learn how to operate heavy machinery, and to play in the dirt. Here at the Student Farm, we have the amazing Market Garden. Founded by students in 1977, this 9-acre plot is dedicated to learning through experience about organic vegetable and fruit production. Students help manage all aspects of the student farm, from planting to harvest to final sale of our fresh produce. This fresh produce is sold at our campus dining halls, at our weekly farm stand, and through our community-supported agriculture or CSA program. The Market Garden also offers opportunities for students to develop their own projects and to specialize in areas such as greenhouse and vineyard management, marketing, farm sustainability, and even community inclusivity. Join our CSA or catch us at the weekly farm stand to see what's in season. Visit the Student Farm website to find out about more opportunities to join our community as an intern, volunteer, or employee.
Okay, Colin, go ahead.
All right, so I'll ask a few questions of my own. So JT, we just learned a little bit about the Market Garden. Can you tell us how you came to the Market Garden and why you stayed?
Yeah, I came to the Market Garden my freshman year, winter quarter of 2020, so right before COVID. I took an engineering class. It was called Communications for Engineers. We didn't really know anything about engineering at the time. And they're like, we're going to go out to this farm, and they're going to have a list of like little problems that they have, or not really problems, but just things you could like improve on. And I came out here, we got a tour. It was really nice. And we came here to check out the carrots, because we're supposed to make a carrot sorter, or at least come up with a concept behind how we were going to come up with a carrot sorter. And I found out about the farm, and I really just fell in love with the place. Just looking around, it's like I would love to work here, at least volunteer, intern, and I just started following them on Instagram. And as soon as I saw that they had job openings, I applied, and during my interview, I pretty much just said, like, I really want to be here. If y'all don't hire me, I'm gonna come volunteer, but you're gonna see me here, because I really wanted to come back after COVID and just be part of Market Garden. It was, I'm come from a part of California where there's like no small scale farming, and just looking at something like the Market Garden where every bed is a different veggie, I was just like blown away, and I really wanted to be a part of it.
Wow.
Great. Well, and so as you mentioned, you've been a part of kind of big, sophisticated ag operations. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how your time out here at the student farm added to that experience?
Yeah. So I was born in King City, California, and I am from a migrant family. So we moved around a lot. We eventually settled in a little town called Chular, just a few miles south of Salinas. But the whole Salinas Valley, I would say, is probably my hometown. And when I was pretty young, I started working laying drip. I switched over to harvesting because it paid better than minimum wage. And for the next 4 years, I worked in a broccoli harvest crew. My weekends, summer breaks, winter breaks, just whenever I was free, I was out in the field harvesting. When there was no broccoli to harvest, I'd hop in with the cauliflower crew, sometimes the leek crew. But that was my experience. Prior to coming here to the student farm, it's a lot different out there than it is here, and in both good and bad ways. Coming here, I realized how little I actually knew. I was actually just really good at a few things, and coming here to the Market Garden, I got to learn, like, pretty much, like, I learned a lot about what there is to farming, not just harvesting, the irrigation, crop rotation, just everything that goes into being the Market Garden and working at a farm.
Great. And so, I mean, I know that you're a mentor to a lot of the other lead student farmers and a lot of the interns out here. What are you taking the lead on right now? And I guess, yeah, what's important for how you personally mentor?
So right now, well, I'm going to be gone in a few weeks. And I've been really trying to get everyone up to speed when it comes to irrigation. I kind of became the de facto irrigation lead. And a lot of people didn't get experience because it didn't stop raining for a couple months. So we weren't really irrigating. And I've been trying to teach a new person, a new lead, a new intern how to deal with sprinkler irrigation. It can be tough at times. Drip for irrigation because I'm gonna be gone, and I'm trying to just pass it on to the next person. And when I teach something like that, or it doesn't even necessarily have to be irrigation, something like harvesting, I try to teach people how it's done and also why it's done. I feel like that if people have questions, they can kind of figure it out for themselves if they know why they're doing what it is that they're doing and how a system works. Whether it be an irrigation system, they can figure out how to fix a leak or whether something should be leaking or not if they just know like the how-to behind everything. And I always try to take a few seconds before getting a task started to just show them this is how we're going to do it, this is why we're going to do it this way. Like when we harvest cauliflower, it's not just like you're going to cut it and that's it. It's like, all right, we're going to try to make it look really pretty. You don't want to dig your knife into the ground. You're going to dull it out so you can just lean it over a little bit, expose the stem, stuff like that. And once you tell them that, they'll figure it out on their own. You don't have to tell them. Like they'll come up to you and be like, should I take this leaf off or not? And it's up to you. As long as it looks pretty to you, that's great.
So kind of getting a little bit into kind of why they're kind of doing the thing you're teaching them to do. Great. Well, you said you are going to be gone in a few weeks, which is sooner than I believe it can be. But yeah, tell us about where you're headed next.
I'm going to be headed back to Salinas and probably Yuma, Arizona as well. And I'm heading back to a company that I previously interned called Diorigo. I think they also go by Andy Boy. At least that's how they package the veggies. And I'm going back as the production technology operations supervisor, which means I'm going to be researching, I'm going to be looking at the new technology coming up, testing it out in the field, figuring out if it's really worth our time or not, and that type of thing. So my engineering is going to come into play as well as my farming background, which I'm excited for.
Great. And yeah, there's a few things that I would love to follow up on. Maybe we'll see where we are at the end. So, but I wanted to ask, the student farm is a lot of things to a lot of people. So yeah, what is the student farm to you?
Over the years, I feel like it's become a family, a home for me. I feel like I look at the other programs like my cousins and my coworkers like my brothers. It's great. I feel at home here with everyone. That's what it really is to me. I feel like I'm with family when I'm here.
Thank you for sharing your experience. So
okay,
back to Andy for now.
Thank you.
But you're not off the hook yet.
Thank you, JT. Next, we're going to turn to Marcy Cathcart. She's a senior in ecological management and restoration. And it's a very appropriate degree because she's a student lead in the ecological garden. Welcome, Marcy.
Thank you.
So as we did last time, we're going to cut to a video here out in the garden.
I love the ecological garden. This is an amazing place because you can connect to people and nature. The ecological garden is a place where students can grow vegetables, flowers, culinary herbs, medicinal herbs, fruit trees, and California native plants. It is also a place where they can lead and learn about things like seed saving, caring for chickens, or composting.
The Eco Garden is also home to the Kids in the Garden field trip program, which brings in young children from around the region to learn at the student farm. They can also learn about the Flower Project, which grows and sells bouquets for campus events, and the Flower CSA. Contact us to join the Flower CSA running from February to December. We'd love to share the garden with you.
All right, so Marcy, you work in the ecological garden that we just heard about. Or the EG as we sometimes call it, what's special about the EG in your mind? What sets it apart?
Yeah, my favorite part of the EG is that it's a really nice place to walk through and observe all this diversity, whether it's coming from different like culinary herbs or the native plants that we plant there and the wildflowers. It's really shady from all the fruit trees, and so it's kind of just an enjoyable place to be, especially with all this hot weather that we've been having. So yeah.
Great. How did you first come to the EG, and why did that kind of those things you described become important to you?
Yeah, the EG, the first time I came to the EG was my first time at UC Davis. I had just transferred in and I had ditched my orientation. And I was like, and I just wanted to explore campus, and I fell in love with this place because it was so beautiful and special. And it kind of kept being like a place of, refuge or meditation between classes and like the stress of being a student. And so I kind of spent a year just coming back and visiting, and didn't really connect until this year, and became a lead student farmer, mostly because I was so interested in the native plants that we have here and the berms that are there, and just kind of integrating this like idea of landscape and food production and sustainability, and kind of integrating all of that together is super interesting to me.
Amazing. And then so in addition to the ecological garden that you described, you've also been involved in the woods. This project of the student farm is working with others on. Can you tell us briefly what the woods is?
Yeah, the woods is here adjacent to the market garden. It's kind of this, it's managed, but it's almost wild at the same time. It's not a place where we're like cultivating, but it's habitat for wildlife and refuge for people to go kind of experience a more natural area. And it's kind of just like an extension of like the student farm and like another place for students to be.
Great, and so so why has working in the woods been important to you, and something that you've taken the lead on?
Yeah, I really was excited to work in the woods because it's this kind of continuation of like how we want to like manage things. So like we have the eco garden where we have like all these like wonderful vegetables and things we want to consume, but also the woods is more of a place for people to kind of experience nature or see like birds. And so I think it's like a really interesting place to think like, okay, what can we do to kind of meet these different goals, whether it's like trying not to have so many weeds that are going to impact the market garden or like the fence line. And so it's this balance of like doing like practical management things, but also like what can we do for the students and for like the wildlife. And it's like all these different like ideas that are coming together with like in the woods that I'm really excited about.
Great, yeah. Who's been a part of that?
Really, everyone at the student farm. We organize like work parties, we call them, because there are some things that we need to get done that are kind of like more labor intensive, but it's also kind of a different space for people to connect. So instead of like doing a big harvest, we're all there pruning back trees that are sprouting, or hopefully we're going to plant some more native plants and all be in there together. And so it's been a nice place for the different programs to kind of get together and get to know each other as well. Because sometimes during the school year, we're kind of focused on the tasks we have at hand, and the woods is kind of a separate thing where we can all kind of come together.
Great. And so, JT talked a little bit about his next kind of career move, his next step after the student farm. What are you thinking about, and what are you planning, and how has the student farm been a part of thinking about the future?
Yeah, so my next spot is going to be up in Reading, working in Whiskeytown National Recreation Area with the National Park Service. So kind of very different from here, but the reason why I was excited to be here at the student farm was really learning like these practical applications, I guess. A lot of like classroom learning. You kind of understand, okay, like we have all these things that can be done, but like practically how hard is it to mow an acre? Like, and then it's a lot harder than you would think, and then the grass grows back so quickly. So like in restoration, you kind of think, oh, this is the solution. And then like, what does that actually entail in people power or practicality, like running into things like on the ground? And then also this like, being able to communicate with people and have a team and listen to students' needs, but also learn from them as well, has been really important. And so like in the future, I'm hoping to like be part of crews and like being able to talk about like heat safety and checking in on people is like super important. And that's something that I've also been able to, try and learn and cultivate for myself here as a lead student farmer.
Yeah, when you mentioned leadership in the video as well. How has leadership played a role in your experience?
Yeah, leadership was, in the job description was one of the main things that came to my mind as being super important and valuable as part of this position. And it's been something that I've been able to like learn through with my coworkers and also my mentors, like what kind of is working in the garden, but then also what we have are like workshops to learn how to be a good leader and kind of talk these things through, like how does this, how do we actually like find solutions, I guess, and be listening to the interns and the students also that are working with us. Yeah.
Great. Well, so what is the student farm to you?
The student farm is so much. For me, it's just an incredible community and place of learning where I can learn from others, because there's students in different majors that I don't know anything about, and so it's always exciting to learn that. But it's like a hub where we get to like meet each other and learn the things that we're interested in and learn from others as well. So it's super special.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
Before we turn to our next discussion, I want to mention to our online audience that we're looking for your questions. At the end of the program, we're going to be answering questions, as many as we can. Please use the Q&A tool for that, and we'll have someone here read your questions as we go along. So finally, we're going to chat with Wendy Martinez Castaneda. She is the senior in food science, and she's the partnership coordinator in the Fresh Focus program. And before we switch to her, we'll see one last video taken out in the farm with the Fresh Focus program.
At the student farm, we want this place and this food to connect people. The Fresh Focus program addresses food insecurity and food justice by working to harvest quality produce from the student farm and distribute it to students and community members. Our produce is available free of charge for partners across campus and around the region. This program is an evolving effort to address campus food insecurity and start dialogue not just around farming, but around how to create a more reciprocal and just food system in how we grow, harvest, distribute, and eat. Find our fresh and free produce at Fruit and Veggie Up, The Pantry, the LGBTQIA Center, AB 540, Nest, CADS, and the Fridges around Davis. Or contact us to start a conversation about people, place, and food.
Colin, take it away.
All right. So Wendy, how did you come to the student farm and Fresh Focus?
Sure. So I'm a food science major, and I got involved with the Food and Recovery Network, which is another program that basically recovers food and takes it. They took it to like the Solano Park apartments, and I got involved with them and I distributed with them as well. And I kind of like really connected with this food access because I myself, like many of the UC Davis students, like suffer from food insecurity. So I definitely wanted also to give back as well. And I found the student farm through like a job posting and about Fresh Focus, and I just decided to do the interview. Unfortunately, I didn't get the job, but I did get an internship with them, which I'm really grateful for. And I was able to intern with them during the summer of 2021. And I just really fell in love when I got to the student farm. Well, it was hard to find because I've never been out here in this part of campus. So when I got here, everybody was really lovely and smiling, friendly faces. It's just very welcoming space. And so I got to interact with like the Market Garden, but also Fresh Focus, which is a food access program. And then from there, I did my internship throughout the summer, and then I went back to my studies, and then I came back to the student farm as a lead student farmer.
And what did you see kind of when you got here that made you persist through those so many visits?
So like I said, I really enjoyed the food access part of it. I believe that everybody has the right to access to food. It's very important. My background, just growing up, my family didn't always have access to food, and I think it's a very important issue to address. And also, we're in college, we also don't have time as well. So just getting like a hot meal or just any type of non-perishable food is just really, we need it. So, I just really fell in love with the student farm, just coming here, and also the nature. Nature is very healing, and that's what I fell in love with as well.
Great. We heard that you're one of the partner coordinators for Fresh Focus. So, what is that involved, and how has it changed over your time as at LSF?
Sure. So, correction. I'm the internal partner coordinator.
Internal partner.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But the partnerships is coordinated with another coworker.
Okay.
But the way that we connect is basically we have multiple partners on campus. So one of our biggest partners is the pantry, which a majority of the students do get their food from. So we deliver their fresh produce and vegetables as well. Also to Fruit and Veggie Up, which is another food access program here on campus. And in terms of internal partner coordinating, that's just me. My job basically entails finding out what food we can harvest and send out to our partners.
And I know that there have been a couple like different aspects of that, over the last year or so, that like production and working with some of the communities farther afield. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, sure. I think you're talking about the wolf scale harvesting.
Wolf scale? I remember you mentioned like your work at night with Knight's Landing.
Oh, right.
And then also kind of a shifting role in terms of the Market Garden and how Fresh Focus is doing working with Market Garden.
Sure. So a majority of our food comes from the Market Garden. There is a lot of food waste that goes on at the farm, and that's what we're trying to address as well. Just seeing it firsthand is kind of wow. And imagine big scale farms. We speaking about Knight's Landing, so they're one of our partners that we connect with during the summer. because during the academic school year, basically, we kind of cater to the students, because this is the student farm, so we want to cater to the students. But Knight's Landing is a food desert up towards Woodland, and basically they are a community of farmers or agricultural workers that don't have access to the food that they harvest themselves. So what we try to do to minimize that gap is bring our produce to that community.
Great. And how has kind of your time at the student farm influenced how you think about your future, kind of personally and for food systems?
Sure. So I think about food waste and all the food waste that happens in our daily lives. And with my major, food science, we don't really think about the food waste that happens in the food industry. We just kind of put out food products out in the shelves. And I think it's an important part of making a sustainable food product is making sure that we really understand where all of our ingredients and where all of our all of our ingredients are sourced from, and whether that is they're sourced sustainably or they're upcycled, things like that.
Great. And so, yeah, what about your future careers? Do you know what you're planning to do next?
Yeah. So my next step is basically I'm going to be working for a startup company that does dehydrated food, and what I want to do with that is I kind of want to make my impact in the food industry by basically helping the food industry reduce their food waste and think about where their ingredients are coming from, and that sort of thing.
Great. And so, yeah, what is the student farm to you?
Sure. The student farm to me means it's a healing place, but also, like many of my coworkers here, fellow lead student farmers have said, it's also a family as well. So I think we really, especially during the summers, where we really connect when we're out there working in the heat, and we have our lunches together. So that's also something that has cured here. So
great. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Wendy. Now we're going to be moving on to some questions next, but Wendy mentioned something that I think we ought to address, and that is, how would a student find a student farm?
You guys, one of you want to address that?
I found it wandering around, just looking for places on campus to be. But I think some students have classes out here as well, and so if you're a plant science major, you might be more likely to be out here. But yeah.
Yeah. I kind of let everybody know that there is a student farm. Like everybody that I meet, I'm like, oh, we're at the student farm. We have free produce. If you ever need any, let me know. So, and I let them know where this student farm is, and I let them know that there's a nice, pretty ecological garden out front.
And what are the directions you give them? When they're like,
oh, okay. So basically, my whole spiel is like, do you know where the rec pool is? It's behind the rec pool, right next to the stadium, the football stadium. That kind of. I kind of give them, just keep going, just keep walking. You'll find it eventually.
Trust yourself.
All right, and Colin, and if a student wanted to work out here, how would they sign up?
Well, like many things, they would go to the website.
Okay.
I think that our website should be perhaps in the chat, but you can find us under the Agricultural Sustainability Institute website. We're a project called the Student Farm, and there's information about our internships as well as volunteering. We'll, I think, soon be posting information there about kind of lead student farmer student employment positions, but those also appear on Handshake.
Okay, all right. Well, we've got some questions coming in, and the first questions are really related to that. Can people besides students get involved, and how does that happen? How does that work?
Yeah, we do work with volunteers. Does anybody want to talk about how either volunteers, students, or community members interact with your programs?
Sure. So there is a community member. Her name is Lisa, She volunteers for the market garden actually, but just recently she had some interest in what we do, and so we took her out in one of our deliveries, and hopefully we plan to collaborate later in the future.
Great. So yeah, helping out at the market garden is one way, and there is again a place to sign up as a volunteer on the website.
Well, we have a related question then. What do the volunteers do out here on the farm?
Mm-hmm. So, JT, do you want to talk about what volunteers do who are out at the market garden with you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the better way to ask that question is what don't they do? Which is they pretty much do everything. They really enjoy to help us harvest. We do irrigation work with them, just really anything that we're doing. We just don't let them ride the tractors. That's pretty much it. But besides that, everything goes, really.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a somewhat more complicated question. Does the ecological garden provide context to students of traditional ecological knowledge from California tribal communities?
Yeah, I think I can speak to that. We have had people from tribal communities come and speak and give workshops. And last year there was like a spring gathering that I can't speak to because I wasn't there, but that was at the woods. And hopefully there'll continue to be more members of the community coming to the ecological garden and sharing with us. But in respect to like learning about like California native plants, you know, we try and share everything that we know. Not saying that, you know, we know everything, but there is opportunity to learn about that at the ecological garden.
Yeah, and I think, excuse me, I think across the farm that we are trying to partner more and learn more about the many ways to take care of land here, including practices, traditional ecological knowledge, and I think some of that collaboration has happened through the woods, but I think we're also been collaborating with some campus groups like the Native Nest and to do things like harvest sage from the ecological garden, harvest different parts of elderberry trees that are on this across the student farm, really, and I think through the course of that, you know, kind of sharing what kind of we have in these gardens and in these farms, but also then learning how they're cared for, how tribal members, tribal groups think about them, and I think we've worked across the last couple years with faculty members in Chicana Studies and Native American Studies to also kind of bring, I think, different ways of knowing different histories with agricultural systems, I think, into I think a lot of our programs, from Kids in the Garden to how we run internships.
Great. Let's see. Based on your experience in agriculture at the student farm, what changes would you like to see happen in agriculture in the future? I think that could take up the rest of the hour.
Yeah.
I think one of them is food waste. There's definitely a lot of food waste and water waste as well. And how can we, you know, take this extra produce? I mean, sometimes it's imperfect and you can't, you know, sell it. So how can we give it to communities in need?
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't originally the biggest fan of organic farming, and I came here and I was like, all right. Sometimes things take too long, but it wasn't my experience at the student farm. It was my experience at commercial farms, at conventional farms, that really made me like a bigger advocate for commercial farming, just slowing down the pace of operations, because if you were to see just how wasteful or the impacts on the environment some of the conventional farming practices that we have are, that would really change people's opinion. Yeah, and I mean, like I said previously, I came from a commercial harvest crew, and it was a huge shock coming out here. Yeah, I mean, because the way we do a CSA is like, all right, we need a head count, so we need like 70 heads of cauliflower or something like that. And when we worked over there, it wasn't heads of cauliflower counting. We're counting pallets and trailers of produce. And it is a big shock. And at first, you're like, why are we wasting so much time? And then it hits you. It's not about time. It's about you are here. We're working, and there's more to work than work. There's a lot more to work than that, and I feel like I would really like to see that change in the agricultural community. There's such a big emphasis on being the fastest and just being the most efficient, and there's a lot more to agriculture than that.
Yeah, I would add, maybe it's not for agriculture specifically, but I find that the ecological garden is so special because people can connect to plants. Maybe they never knew what they looked like or what they're, because like, who's seen a broccoli growing? Like it's I think a really special opportunity for people to connect with plants that maybe they think they're familiar with. And a big part of that is these kids tours. It's so amazing to see the garden just full of kids learning about, you know, all these other plants that maybe they wouldn't get to experience other than that. So I think having this shift to be more connected would be really amazing.
All right, so here we have, and I should mention, if any of you here in this room have questions, raise your hand and I'll call on you. So the next question is a student farm certified organic? Do you use no-till practices? That's pretty specific.
That's pretty specific, yeah, pretty easy, yeah. So the market garden is certified organic. So that's the CSA and most of the food in the CSA and farm stand. The ecological garden is not certified organic, but managed through managed with a lot of permaculture, regenerative agroecology. You can fit it in a lot of different buckets because there's a lot that's going on out there. And is no-till happening? Yes. Yeah, we have a wonderful internship coordinator and graduate student extraordinaire who's doing Delaney Sondag, who's doing research on no-till methods and cover cropping and compost teas and how that works. We're going to be receiving a no-till seed drill pretty soon to use in our vineyard, as well as in trying some new things out in the fields. So yeah, I think there's a lot of no-till practices happening kind of in different spaces across the farm.
Great. Let's see. Elliot from the Internship and Career Center is curious to hear how internship opportunities out here, what the internship opportunities are.
And how they developed. Yeah, so I guess you could tell us how do interns interact with your program, and yeah, I guess maybe even how do you relate to them?
I think, I don't know, the internship's really neat because it gets a lot of exposure to different parts of whether it's the farm or the garden. At least at the garden, how a lot of it works is that we try and, you know, see what the students are interested in and really try and get them exposure to those experiences, but also, you know, there's a lot of things that kind of need to be happening as well, and trying to show them like the reasons for that and like what practical skills they might want to learn, or maybe if it's just something like I don't know, being able to apply things that they learn in the classroom and like ask questions or teach us. I find that I learn a lot from the interns as well, but it's really kind of this I don't know, dynamic learning experience. It's kind of like them figuring out what they want to learn and us trying to get them that experience, and then kind of going from there. And then there's more kind of specialized internships that they can progress into as well.
Yeah, anything you want to add to that, Wendy or JT?
Yeah, our internship program, I'll go over how I deal with my interns and my mentees. We check in with them 3 times a quarter. At the beginning, we just tell them like, hey, what do you want to do here? What do you want to learn? Is there anything in particular? Most of them are just trying to they have never been in an outdoor setting. They just want to get some experience. And I always tell them, you're here to do what you want to learn. You don't have to be following me around. If you want to go learn how to harvest this crop, if you want to go learn about no-till or pest control, like I'll guide you, I'll tell you who to go with, but I kind of let them figure stuff out on their own. And if they have a question, they can always ask me. And we check in with them in the middle of the quarter and at the end of the quarter, just to see like their progress and how it's going. And they always have the opportunity to return and intern 1-2 more quarters or as many times as they want to. Yeah, usually they end up becoming LSFs.
Yeah. Eventually.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think they touched on a few pieces of that, but interns usually start as general interns and they apply through that usually at the beginning of registration period now, and you can move from general to what's called a field demonstration internship, and then to a specialized internship. And if you haven't decided to leave, then maybe you become an LSF. But yeah, so interns come for different periods of time and for different reasons. There are some internships with specific jobs, like in the vineyard, pruning internship in the ecological garden, shop internship. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to be involved out here.
So somebody's asking, how can they visit? Do you offer tours?
Yeah, we do offer tours. We have an amazing program for school groups called Kids in the Garden, and schools usually sign up for that. I think in the previous fall, or at least, or summer. It's always earlier than I expect, and it fills up. But so yeah, school groups come in and do tours with us. Student groups, campus groups, university planners. We do lots of tours. We don't right now have a specific day where every month or every quarter where we have a kind of standing tour. But it's something we're thinking about. So watch that space.
I'm sure
and otherwise, yeah, you can email us at the Student Farm if anybody has a group that would like to come out here and learn with us. I think we're also trying to think less about tours and think more about how to experience the Student Farm, not just walk around and listen to us talk. So be ready to get dirty if you're going to come out here.
Okay. Well, we're probably going to have to wrap up here in a few minutes, but we have one more question. How much food do you provide to campus food service?
Well, Wendy, do you know how much food Fresh Focus provides? So it's not campus food service, but to your partners?
To my partners? Well, we do have a weekly or monthly newsletter that has all of the information, but I cannot remember the numbers off the top of my head. But I know it's in the probably thousands. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think the fall and summer newsletter is on ASI's website. So yeah, those numbers for Fresh Focus can be found there. We provide through the Market Garden as well as the Ecological Garden Flower Project, produce, flowers, to dining services and catering services on campus, as well as the CSA member households, which are kind of campus community as well as Davis more broadly. But I do not know how much food that adds up to, how many pounds or trailers or pallets. But
Well, I'm sure put JT on that. I'm sure he can figure it out.
Yeah, well, he's figuring out right now the elevation differences, which if anybody's online is not in the Central Valley, those elevation differences are not great. So he has the precision and the lasers to figure out how much food we are producing.
All right. Okay. Well, we don't have any more questions unless there's a question from this audience, but the words of praise are coming in. The 3 students are being congratulated on their exceptional stories. So thank you all. Thank you all for your stories tonight. I think it's important to let folks know what's going on here, and I think all of you have have ended up here for very good reasons. Before we leave, I'd like to turn to Colin here and ask him. We heard from the students, what the student farm is about to them, and I'd like to close by hearing from you. What is the student farm to you?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm newly hired, so I'm still figuring it out. And I think what the student farm is always changing, and I think so. I think that's a really remarkable thing about it. But I think that's number one. I hope that what it is always changing. I think number two, we heard that it's a family, and I think that for me it's a community doing, I think, one of the most important jobs there is right now, which is learning together how to participate in future food systems, learning how to participate in food systems that will sustain a world that's changing in ways we know about, and will, I think, change in lots of ways we don't know about. And I guess the third thing that comes to mind is, I think the student farm it's obviously a place. It's a place that students fought for, nearly 50 years ago. But it's a place that was cared for by Patwin people for much, much longer than that. And so I think it's a place that we are continuing to figure out how to care for.
All right. Well, it's pretty clear that this is a place where students learn they learn by doing. They learn by using their own hands, which is very different from what students often learn on campus. So it's a very important place, I think, to give students that opportunity to come here and learn with their hands, but also to learn how to work together as a community, which is perhaps the most important lesson they can learn from here. If you've been listening and watching and impressed with this, if you'd like to help support the student farm, we'll be sending you a thank you letter in short order, and there will be links there for helping to support the student farm. Once this is recorded, you'll find it on YouTube below the video. So I'd encourage you to consider supporting the student farm financially if that's possible for you. And finally, I'd like to thank the students and thank Colin for their insights this evening.